Okay, I finally promoted this show on the main channel, and in a stroke of genius, I timed it to be with the holiday season when we're all most likely to be away from home and unable to record. Should we take a winter break again?
Yeah, thanks, all you newcomers. Don't miss us too much when we inevitably disappear around the holidays for a little bit.
The newcomers, speaking of them, were really getting a crash course in how the show works, in that you were the winner, the person who gets to say what everybody wants to hear regarding Starbucks, and I'm the depraved psycho who says what nobody wants to hear. I get used to it. That's how it goes.
That's right. I'm always right and you're always wrong, just like it should be.
I did finally come up with two options for me to talk about brands that send me stuff in Reels format. As you can tell, this has been like a multi-weeks long struggle that I've multi-months long at this point. So here's option one. I explain what everything is to a friend who's on camera, and then he tries it, and that way I'm not liable for any reactions that he has to it. I call that one my brand, or my product hall surrogate. And option two is to have my lawyer, aka Bree, be a product hall translator, where I say my honest feelings, and then she translates them into brand-friendly words. For example, don't you think it's supremely unjust that Iberico pork is being sent to influencers while people lose their SNAP benefits? Turns into, I'm grateful beyond comprehension for all my blessings. What do you think about those?
I love that idea. I feel like maybe that is not the most desirable outcome for the brand sending you stuff, but I personally love that idea.
Dang it. Well, I have a lot to say about, I think, just brands and products and how influencers react with them, but I get the feeling that that conversation is going to come up pretty naturally throughout the show. So let's just get straight into the headlines.
Reservation software OpenTable is using AI to create detailed guest profiles, allowing restaurants to gain new insight into customers based on their comprehensive dining history. Your preferences and habits are being tracked across restaurants and stored in your profile, potentially influencing everything from your seating to upsells and even whether you get that reservation to begin with.
Well, I got to start by saying I don't even use OpenTable unless I'm forced to. And usually that's just like if it's a restaurant in Las Vegas, which I haven't even been to in like almost 3 years now. And between OpenTable and Resi, like I get an American Express benefit from Resi where it's like $100 every year or something. And I've never ever used it because I look at the Resi options in my area and it's just like, well, that's not something that I want to go out of my way for just to go to get the benefit. Do you use OpenTable and Resi and all these things?
I don't think I've ever booked through OpenTable before. I think every time I've ever made a reservation, I either just did it over the phone or it was a restaurant that used Resi. In my research for this, I discovered that Resi is generally considered like the one that higher end restaurants use, although that has definitely not been my experience, but I don't know.
There's one restaurant over here that uses OpenTable for their reservations, and it's just I don't like it because it's so convoluted. Like there's a little icon that means sitting at the bar versus sitting at the table, and it takes me longer to figure that out than it would for me to just call. And also, there's like no flexibility at all. It's just like this is for 6:30, and there's another one at 7:30. Whereas I can call and just say like, can I get this at 6:45? So I'm right there with you. I'm not a user of these tools unless I'm forced to be.
We're really aging ourselves here. We're just like, I just want to call and talk to a person.
I do think it would be easy to get all doom and gloom about this, but it's just like what kind of person uses OpenTable, much less uses OpenTable a lot. It's not even like a Ford versus Chevy thing where some folks like OpenTable and some folks like Resi because it just depends on which one your favorite restaurant has picked for you. You have no say in who participates. And regarding this sort of like AI tracking thing, which is probably not even AI to begin with, you do have a say in that you have an ability to opt out. So that is nice, but it's not like we can applaud social tech platforms for creating another annoying system that you can opt out of instead of one that you have to opt into. I guess that with more and more of these stories like this one and the Starbucks bear last week and whatever came the week before that, it just generates this sort of hunger for someone to stand up and say like this thing bad in the face of our imagined boardrooms of tech bros asserting this thing is good. And nobody's surprised when Mr. Dialectics shows up on his Friday show to be like, I understand the appeal to stakeholders and the inclination to resist, but these are the sort of daily nuisances that we should expect to deal with when living in the tech oligopoly. And, I have to wrestle with Instagram every 30 days to get it to play nice. I have to opt out of suggested content. That's just the cost of doing business while maintaining my own personal priorities.
At first I thought you said Dianetics, and I was like, I was not prepared for a Scientology conversation today. Anyways, though, back on topic. I do think you have a good point of like, every week it is, a lot of the stories that I find are these kind of like seemingly like moral one way or the other thing where we are expected to be either like this is bad or this is good or, not a lot of necessarily like room for wiggle room there. As far as being like a user of something like this, I've never, like I said, I've never used OpenTable. I've not encountered this kind of thing. I would not like this. Like if I were to use OpenTable, I would definitely opt out of this immediately. Apparently it's kind of difficult to opt out of it. You really have to like get deep in the user settings for it, which is kind of to be expected. I feel like most like tech tracking things like that are specifically set up so that it is much easier to just let them go ahead and do their thing. From like a customer perspective, I don't like the idea that like, you know, I'm not a person that goes out to eat super, super often, especially at like a really nice place where I need a reservation. And I hate the thought that like, if 6 months ago I had to cancel last minute because some crazy thing happened, that might carry over to a meal that I don't even go out for until another like 4 or 5 months later. But also from just a hospitality perspective, I find this really upsetting because I feel like it immediately puts people in a position where like, the high rollers are going to receive preferential treatment. And obviously there is, that's going to happen normally in restaurants. People want the table that they think is going to tip better, things like that. People want the higher bill to get a higher tip, etc. But, growing up in like a hospitality family and having worked in restaurants most of my life, I was always taught that, you treat every diner with the same respect and esteem as one another. And that is just how hospitality works. If you have
Past tense. Now who's
I guess
dating
so.
themselves?
But you treat your solo diner tucked in the corner who's only ordering water with the same reverence that you treat, a four top who's knocking back expensive cocktails. Like that's just how you do it. It's the right thing to do, and it's how you get people to have a good experience. People know when they're being treated well and when they're being snubbed.
Here's the way I'm going to mentally put a pin in this until proven otherwise incorrect. With lower end restaurants, you have a sort of like points system where it's like buy 5 sandwiches, get one half off. And this might just be the high class version of that, where it's like, what's your Uber rating? What's your Resi rating? What's your OpenTable AI rating? And it's just going to be like, if you have enough clout, it's going to be made apparent. And I think that's a little bit more digestible for the type of people who are eating at Nobu versus, a punch card that gives them half off one of their entrees.
I mean, when you put all those things together, though, I really just feel like going out for a meal is starting to feel like trying to book a flight now. It's like you have all these rewards programs, you have preferential seating, you have additional fees that might be incurred for whatever reason. You spend more money, you get better, you get first class treatment, so to speak. Next you're going to be able to purchase additional leg room at the restaurant and they're going to be handing out free Biscoff cookies.
You're talking to the guy who has tried and failed to make a dinner reservation for a place on Resi because it takes that min-max approach where it's just like, oh, I can make $100 towards my dinner account. Let's see where I can go. Never mind. I don't want to go there. I give up. So I'm already where you're projecting. I'm there.
OpenTable. We have an OpenTable at home.
No. It's dirty and it's full
that
of
was bad.
Full of junk.
That was bad, guys. I'm sorry.
And there's a baby at the head of the table making a mess.
Italian pasta makers are facing tariffs of up to 107% after the U.S. Department of Commerce alleged that the companies failed to provide the required data for an anti-dumping investigation, a term used to describe when a business sells their product internationally at an artificially deflated price in an attempt to outsell competitors and win market share.
So this story has been getting more attention for like almost 2 weeks now, and I expected it to come up on the show. So when I was seeing it come up so often, I sought out some opinions from people who like the idea of limiting the number of Italian pasta options, right? Like I imagine most people aren't down with this. The closest that I could get was this sentiment of like, well, it's wheat and salt and water, and why do we need to import that? Which, by the way, does ignore the concept of like what kind of wheat and how are they combined, but who's expecting acknowledgement of artistry in a debate about what the president is doing this week. So, all this to say that during all of that absorption of the cultural debate, I didn't hear even once that this was a matter of anti-dumping. So here's your moment to explain what that even is.
I feel like it's hard to have like a serious conversation when the phrase at hand is just dumping. So bear with me, everybody. But yeah, it's basically like, these products might sell for a certain amount in Italy, and they are being sold for not just less than the amount that they might sell for in Italy, but less than they should be sold it for in the United States in terms of them making a profit, so to speak. And it's basically like a way for companies to sort of gain recognition, take up space on shelves.
I'm going to interrupt you because it's just like, well, you got to explain to me how this is any different than like throwing a sale or offering any discount on anything, because that's what you do. It's like you offer a low margin item on deep discount to get more of the market share and more recognition. Like this seems very free market coded, and for that to be limited, I don't understand what the point is other than keep the Italians out of the pasta aisle.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, that is kind of essentially what it is. It's just the thing that separates it is that it is like an international, like a foreign product. And in the United States, we have this prioritization of like buying things from like US made companies, even if they're not necessarily as good. Not to say that there's not good pasta made in the United States. I will say, like, out of the dozen or so brands listed on these, I see several that I buy pretty frequently. So maybe it is time to stock up. But yeah, this is basically just like undercutting competitors in order to gain a following to then hopefully raise the price in the future is kind of the end goal.
Like Amazon, like Uber, like every other hyperscaler in history.
Yeah, I mean, it's really not that different from a lot of other things that we see happening in like just commerce in general. But the thing that makes it different in this case is that it is like a foreign company.
So in all of your research, what's your conclusion based on what you know? Are they violating the anti-dumping rules?
I mean, from everything I read, it sounds like, either this is sort of like a scandalous thing where they are like trying to hide information or not be like totally forthright with the things that they are providing. But all these companies are saying basically that like there are lots of new employees in the US Department of Commerce and that maybe there was just some kind of miscommunication. Maybe people are not being trained properly to understand the information that they're being presented with. I'm not really finding any sort of concrete answers to this. It's still sort of under investigation until early 2026. They are basically giving these companies like a certain amount of time to be like, hey, provide me more information or we are going to enact this like crazy tariff.
Well, if the prices for dried pasta doubled, would this be a win for the concept of pasta, the aura of pasta? I think this might be a bombshell moment, but neither Bree nor I really even care for pasta very much. It's delicious, obviously, but there's like the sizable portion of people who regard pasta as the pinnacle of culinary achievement, and they dream of going to Italy and tasting pasta at its peak or learning how to make it fresh. But I feel like the past decade has made it feel like that luster has died down. You have folks like Batali saying boxed is often better. And then you have trends on social media like unifetta pasta or chingadera sauce, where the focus is on novel toppings and sauces and not the noodle itself. So if pasta became a little bit more exoticized, a little bit more exclusive, could that bring back its proverbial sauce?
I don't know that that is really the case, so to speak, because I think most people in the US are probably buying American-made pasta. The American Barilla line, Prince, Ronzoni, a bunch of these other things. Those are the most common ones, and that's not even getting into like store brand, great value, things like that. But I personally, like, I don't eat, like, a ton of pasta at home, but the pasta that I do have on hand at home is, like, a higher quality, like, Italian, like, bronze die-cut pasta. Personally, I would rather eat, like, a really nice box pasta with, like, a little bit of olive oil, whatever, cheese on it than, like, great value penne with, like, a really nice sauce on it.
I'd rather eat whichever frozen fresh pasta comes stuffed with things, cheeses and crab meats and spinaches. But again, we're not big pasta
Getting into
eaters.
a whole other category over here with ravioli, all that.
I will say it is. You'd think I'd be used to this roller coaster by now, where I'm just like, hold on, I'm listening to myself talk. I feel like I'm actually finally cooking, and then you respond with a, no, I don't think so, because that's how I know I'm wrong. So that's the end of what I have to say about this one.
Personal opinion.
Sure. And also 100 comments agreeing with you. So I'm ready. Don't worry. I'm used to it.
Thanks, guys.
Can you tell I'm salty?
Listen, You're still got one over me for the, I feel like I'm never gonna recover from the biopic moment,
Oh,
so
yes.
I think I need all the wins that I can get.
And also not knowing who Paul Giamatti is.
Not just not knowing who he was, but thinking that him and Rob Schneider were the same person.
It's tough.
All right. Restaurants Starting over. Restaurants across the country are increasingly shifting their efforts towards more experience-based dining, prioritizing spectacle and exclusivity to attract diners. At a time when meals are likely to end up on TikTok and Snapchat, creating a dish into an experience worth documenting is a high priority.
All right, well, this story is coming across my desk at a strange moment in my life because last night I spent a good hour grappling with the current state of trends and influencers. I don't know how deep I want to get into all that, but it's becoming clear to me that, like, even though we know that influencers are powerful and millions of people will emulate their behavior without a second thought and commit large sums of money to whatever they like, I think that we still don't fully grasp how fundamentally important they are to the current consumer climate. And I think this might be a function of my propensity for collecting hobbies because each hobby, no matter how niche, ends up having a handful of influencers that just turn the entire tide of whole industries with one tap of the thumb. And excuse me for being Mr. Long-winded introduction to my points today, but if you start with this extreme reverence for the god kings of social media, why wouldn't you tailor your whole business to their desires?
You know, maybe I have just like a different like relationship to this like thought process because I don't really engage with a lot of influencer content online. Like I know you just said like the main sort of vehicle for that content for you is like hobbies and the way that you see these influencers like pushing or sort of directing the current of how these hobbies are going in general society. But I don't really consume a lot of like influencer content outside of like cooking content and stuff that I look at for this show. Um, so it's funny that you say that as sort of your example in all of this, because I really was not looking at it from like an influencer perspective so much as I was looking at it through like just people love to share food on the internet, like not just influencers, you know, regular people. The phone eats first thing, you know, has been around for so long. You know, since the moment Instagram existed, it has been a vessel to share pictures and videos of food. I think that social media in general, outside of just influencers, really drives all of this. Like, maybe I just feel that way because I live in like a not super influencery area. You know, there's not like a lot of like popular Maine-based influencers. You know, there are like some food accounts that like talk about different restaurants down in Portland and stuff, but I feel like I don't experience a lot of that in my area, so maybe I just feel kind of separated from it.
Well, I think that it's just when we think of an influencer, it's somebody with 10 million followers, but it's just this like long tail economy now where somebody like Glamorama can have a falling out that influences a bakery so much that it changes their trajectory forever. And so there's this concept in clothes horsing called being a fashion victim, and you see this in every type of product now. Like a victim of trends in toys may have now too many Labubus that they cannot resell, while a victim of trends in bags may now have too many options in once trendy shades of millennial pink or butter yellow. And restaurants, a type of business with extremely high failure rates, seem willing to risk the downsides in order to be eligible to the stratospheric highs of garnering clout on social media, whether it's from like an influencer, somebody with like 10 million followers, or just like a lowly creator, a micro, what do you call micro influencer? I don't know. Like the long tail is so long that you can accidentally become in a Michi Pizza or a JL patisserie and make enough money to set you up for life while still being a globally unknown niche neighborhood business.
I think I see your point there, although I don't totally understand the comparison to like bags and like toys like Labubu and stuff like that. Just because these restaurant trends are like, you know, something that can very easily be like changed or taken away in an instant. You know, if something is not working at your restaurant, you can do it for a couple weeks and then say, you know, we're not doing this anymore. You know, if you buy 40 Labubus, you are stuck with them until you sell them and get rid of them. Whereas, you know, if you are doing a butter chicken experience at your restaurant and it's not doing too great, you can do it for a couple weeks, sell all of the chicken that you have, and then move on to whatever the next idea is.
I'll try to relate it to food more. appropriately. Imagine there is a TikTok trend where it's like hot girls drink Diet Coke, or a more accurate
That's
one was
right.
hot girls eat Caesar salad and French fries. That was one for a while. Are you are you familiar with that one? That was like a year ago, I think, right? Caesar salad, French fries, and maybe a martini.
Yeah, that was like the elevated girl dinner, right? Like girl dinner was initially just like eating a fistful of cheese and crackers and nuts, and then it became like an espresso martini and Caesar salad and truffle fries.
You run the risk, but part of it is because TikTok users are very stupid, I'm afraid to say, and I've said it so many times, but it's like you have this, let's imagine it in like an image meme format where it's like hot girls eat X, and then people see it and they're like, oh, if I want to become hot girl, I eat X. And I think that there's this sort of interaction that people have with trends in social media that's working in the background of every niche and every industry and every way to consume food or media or products. And that's kind of what's been spinning me out about this. And that's why I'm just like, I don't know how deep to get into this, because if I explained in full what I'm actually thinking, this would be an hour long.
I mean, they love to see you crash out. Go ahead.
That's true. It is also worth mentioning that like search engines index social media videos now. So when I Google something like a live tuna breakdown, because I see the restaurant by me is doing a live tuna breakdown while they're serving tuna, I'm likely to get a video of a TikToker sharing their experience. So it's like at a place in Las Vegas or something, like, come with me to do a live tuna breakdown.
Yeah, that was kind of the first thing I thought about when looking at the story was whatever that restaurant was like a couple months back that was like really going viral for this like huge, expensive like tuna butchering dinner. I will say though, I do feel like I predicted this. I know that somewhere deep in the recesses of this show, there is an episode where I'm like, tableside Caesar is coming back. Tableside guac is coming back. I feel like I've been saying this for years now. And it is really, the TikTokification of it all is like, if you can create an experience that can be distilled down to a 30-second entertaining clip on TikTok, like that is probably enough to get people to come into your restaurant.
I will say that I saw a TikTok, I think 2 days ago, where it was somebody doing tableside chicken parm, and it's just a fried cutlet of chicken, and he's got a skillet of cheese, and he just kind of flops it onto the table and then sprinkles parsley over it, and it was a high-end looking restaurant, so...
I feel like that's barely tableside. Like that feels so low effort to me. And I mean, I get it. A little bit of entertainment does like go a long way to making a meal like feel fun and light. I remember probably like 6-8 months ago, Dan and I went to this like very mediocre restaurant near us. The food was like really mid, nothing to write home about. But they had a great cocktail program. And I remember Dan ordered a cocktail that came to the table in this like big treasure chest. And the server like unlocks it with a key and opens it up. And there's all this billowing dry ice smoke everywhere. And it was like kind of cringe and silly, but it was also cute. And it was like entertaining enough to kind of like
Is he
lighten
doing this
the
the
mood.
whole time, by the way? Are you guys doing
No,
this
I have
one?
no video evidence, I will say. But it like was almost enough to make up for the food not being that good. If the food was bad, it wouldn't have been enough. But like that little bit of like, okay, like at least they put some thought into this, made it a little bit more enjoyable.
I guess I just never know how to react when the news story is X is a trend, Y is a trend, Z is a trend that we see coming up. I guess I will always advise people to focus on what they actually like doing and then just wait for the trends to find their way to you. Like it could be that somebody's doing like a really boring meal, and then one day there's a new TikTok trend where it's like boar maxing is the new way to dine. And my favorite example of this is a disc golf channel called Jomez Pro, because they just spent a long time making the highest quality disc golf media that they could for a tiny audience. And so when disc golf had its moment in the zeitgeist, they were positioned for greatness. And I think the restaurants who serve really good butter and bread at the table may benefit from the recent trend of high food prices shifting butter upwards as a sort of affordable luxury. Now you have butter boards and butter yellow color shaded things. Trend forecasters who are able to offer like a butter yellow version of their product in 2024 saw a benefit from that trend moments before. They're able to forecast it and then get ahead of it and then get the benefits of that. But anchoring your livelihood to trend forecasting is anxious and never-ending work, whereas doing what you like and just hoping to attract a core audience is fulfilling and brings peace. And in a roundabout way, I've just explained my whole approach to YouTube as well.
All right, well, if we're talking about trends, I do have a couple strange new items to run by you this week. I've got Pringles Once You Pop mystery boxes, Brock's I'm not really sure what's correct there, cane opener, and a nice wine, a collaboration with Graza and limited edition wines.
The Pringles, once you pop mystery box animals, are an abomination. They don't all have a mustache. They should all have a mustache. They look gross, and I don't think they'll be collectible at all.
I agree. I was a little bit confused that only 2 of them had a mustache. I will say I saw Snacksalotl on there, and I immediately went to see if that Instagram handle was available. It's not, unfortunately.
That's the rarest one, so you know it's going to be the Grail piece.
I do think some of them are like cute, I guess. Like I think Crunchback Whale is a fun name. But for $20 for a thing of Pringles and a little keychain that is going to, get lost or end up in a landfill in 6 months, a crazy price. I don't know who is like such a diehard Pringles fan that they're going to be going out of their way for this. Yeah, can't say that it holds a lot of appeal to me personally.
Sometimes I wonder if these are just products that they make to give away to influencers for free publicity, and they're like, we should also sell them to try to recoup some of the cost. But the Brax cane opener, I think finally this is something that tickles my cute receptors, because how do you bring excitement to a stodgy old standby like candy corn or candy canes? You lean into their shortcomings and the frustrations that people have with them. And my big suggestion, big brain marketing moment, imagine if Royal Dansk started selling their cookies inside of a tin labeled sewing supplies.
I do like that. I think that that's really cute. The only like real thing that I have to add to the conversation about the cane opener, and this is going to be like exposing some things about myself. This is just a blunt splitter. This is a blunt splitter that you run a candy cane through. You can get one of these for $4 at a gas station or a smoke shop or something.
Oh, well, see, I would rather have the cane opener as a blunt splitter than to buy a blunt splitter as my cane opener. It's more swagged out in that way.
You do have a point there. I feel like it would get more use that way.
We've got to cap it off with the Nice Wine Graza collaboration, because I've already been in the deep spiral of trends and branding, and I think I'm just in this weird duality where I'm fluent in certain contemporary languages like that which breeds 6-7, where I'm happy and willing to participate, yet utterly geezed out towards the ever shifting language for consumerism. Like, I won't buy the product, the nice wine, but I do think it is time to congratulate Graza for the semiotic fluency that they've developed, such that they can say, this is the nice olive oil and we know nice stuff, so allow us to introduce you to nice wine. So great job.
I kind of feel like they're just starting to almost veer into like liquid death territory, where they are about to start going the route of like things that have nothing to do with their actual olive oil. Like, they've been making all these different olive oils. They've been making a hummus. They've been making potato chips, all these things that do include their actual product. And I get why the wine would be something that goes hand in hand. Like, you can even get a set on their website that's like 2 bottles of olive oil and a bottle of wine and a bag of olive oil potato chips. And I get that. Like, it does go together. It's like kind of cute. But I feel like pivoting into this wine, it's starting to get almost a little bit too outside the box, in the same realm as like the liquid death, liquid multivitamin.
They're not even pivoting. They're ascending. This is where I begin to start opening my third eye. Like, they're not just the olive oil company anymore. They're the Nice Things brand. And it's just going to be, you sort of used to have that with Target, where it's like, it's Walmart, but a little nicer. And Graza just becomes its own thing, where it's just like, if you think like us, we can ascend together and we'll all have nice things all the time.
I feel like their next move is going to be releasing like an olive oil based skincare line. That is like my 2026 prediction for that.
That's fair. My prediction, I should have thought about this before, it's just going to be some nice other thing. What are other things that people worry about not being nice? They'll come up with a fragrance. They'll just be like, this is, it smells like olive orchard, and Flamingo Estate kind of does this as well. I think they're going to go more of a Flamingo Estate direction, and we'll see at the end of 2026 who's right. And hopefully it'll be the first time I ever win the Who's Right contest on the show.
Okay, first time. Yeah, right.
Is that the end? Do we have anything else to say?
I don't think so.
Stay tuned to see if we show up next week, or whether we'll be on holiday break or not, because we did not figure that out, and I'm not going to do it live.
Please stand by.
Have a happy holiday if we don't see you next week. And what holiday is it? Thanksgiving. Have a happy Thanksgiving if I don't see you next week.
Bye-bye, guys.
Can you tell I've been put in a weird headspace by thinking about trends and brands and all this stuff for nonstop 24 hours straight?
You look like you're going to go sit in the corner and rock back and forth for a little while.
I am. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Eater's Digest is published every Friday morning on YouTube with video and Spotify with audio. You can support the show by subscribing, by sharing it with somebody who might like it, or by joining our Discord at patreon.com/Shack.